There's some complaints about potential customer service or it being a bit of a closed ecosystem or whatever, but it looks like there's already third parties making parts for it and stuff. So yeah, but the big claim to fame was like you just turn it on and it pretty much does what you want it to do, and it doesn't like spool plastic everywhere and shit. All right, so I just started the stream.
Spaghetti party.
And I'm just going to say hello if you're watching the VOD, welcome. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all you need. If you're watching the VOD, you probably have seen one of these before. I'm going to go back to talking to Simon. Simon's here. We may not be talking just about work. So you know how it is. Ollie, you are first. But yeah, so Simon and I were just talking 3D printers while I was loading stuff up. And let me hop into the map and look, and then I'll also share screen in the huddle. That may help.
Yeah, I can also watch the stream here, Sean.
Can you, let's see, can you draw my screen right now? Can I draw my screen? I can. Hey, let's DDJ, see. Lich, Talet, Tidy Tibbs. Chaz Solo. I was just in the client and getting those wonderful extra frames per second. It was nice. But then Simon and I started talking. I realized that I should probably be in the editor. It'll maybe be a little bit easier to look at this. So I'm doing that now. But I may log back out if and when we finish and just play a bit. Because I'm just tired, man. I'm tired today, guys. Idafab, what's up? Rediker, what's going on? Elron. Let me know if the sound levels are okay. I've got this Red Bull, but I don't know that's I think it's crashing on me. Like I started it too early. I peaked too soon, guys.
Alright, I'm just gonna restart my PC here, Johnny.
Alrighty. The other voice is Simon, also known as Baloo here in chat.
Hey, gang.
What's up? How you doing, Quixana? Chili sauce. It says first time chat. Are you one of our lurkers? It just gave me like a Twitch is thinking kind of wheel popped up, reconnecting the chat. Let me know if there's any issues with this stream. We're supposedly getting fiber. They just ran the cable from the sidewalk to the house today, but it's still going to be like, I think 6 to 10 weeks before it's all hooked up. My bitrate is showing a pleasant gray. So Fabrizio said, been watching the Biome Jam video all week. Right on. Hey, Yi Sam, what's going on, brother? Yeah, Twitch, man. Twitch is interesting. It's funny, I never thought about it. I just saw that Asmon video where they're talking about how much Twitch costs Amazon versus how much it makes. It's incredible. So one of these days we may have to meet somewhere else. Have room at your place? Okay. Couple couches, recliner. How new is your place? Like, I'm a prima donna. I get really grossed out about like old bathrooms. I need a brand new bathroom. I don't like touching the floor. I don't want to stand in your shower if it's not like brand new. I'm fancy. We were just talking about 3D printing because I started looking into 3D printers again yesterday. It's been a long time since I cared, but I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, the pre-op finger consultation for the surgery on the 29th. And come to find out, it's very likely that the insurance here in Germany is not going to cover the prosthetic for my finger that I want, because it sounds like they won't cover prosthetics if you lose any less than 3 fingers. And so the prosthetic I want, I think, is somewhere around like 10 grand if you pay out of pocket, and I'm not going to do that. So I will just spend the money on a 3D printer, and I'll look at all the images of the prosthetic that I actually want, and then we will rip off their IP and make a version of that, because why not?
Hell yeah, dude. You can even scan your own hand, can't you?
Yeah.
Get a custom-made orthotic.
Yeah, I mean, the design of it's pretty straightforward, so we'll see if we can figure it out. I've got the feeling that between this community and the internet and everything else, we'll be able to figure it out. And I figured because the one that I liked's got these nice metal linkages. And I figure we can just figure out how to build the linkages and design them to look the way we want in plastic first. And then I'll send the plastic models off to be machined, and boom. I think they use stainless steel. So could either do stainless steel or aluminum. Get some nice billet finger hinges. Cool. Can you see what I see, Simon?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Are you able to draw on my screen?
Yeah, I can. I'll join the huddle on my PC right now.
Okay. Get some Hot Topic finger claw jewelry to use as a pinky, Rediker. I'm a bit old for that. Oh, there he is. Hey, Justin Beer, what's going on, buddy? Zukin, Ali is signing you up to design my finger. Bet we could probably come up with some pretty cool little designs. 3D print them. How old are you, Rediker? What's up, Static Group? Ancient and unknowable. Nearly 40. Alright, so then you're like 10 years younger than me. So stop it. Yeah, next month I'll be 49. Zukin, I haven't had a chance to watch the stream, but I was skimming through. I noticed two things. One, I don't think I heard the money hats thing before. That was cute. And two, why is the ogre in a bra, in a bikini top? You're trying to make the stream family friendly. You didn't check the ogre nips flag on your Twitch profile? Stream may contain tobacco, alcohol references, ogre nips. What's up, Dozakar? Ogre fans. I still can't believe we didn't get only gnomes before it blew up. Wonder what it costs now. Wonder if the price has changed. Let me look it up. Is it still like 1,000? What's up, Chinny D? Only gnomes, 2,500 bucks. That's just ridiculous. Whoever's out there sitting like squatting on that, just driving the price up. If you're lurking in here right now, you need to come to your senses. We're not going to put the merch store online until somebody unsquats that. Only gnome.games. 1999. It's 1999 because it's horrible. That's a horrible domain. Even onlygnomes.gg would be horrible. If you buy onlygnomes.com, can you trade it for permanent access to the dev server? Are you trying to ask us to sell ourselves for 2,500 bucks? If you deliver us onlygnomes.com, then you can be on our pre alpha 3. Pass. All right. Well, That. Do you have your price? You need to read a book on negotiation. You didn't even ask what pre-alpha 3 was. That could have been immediate access. All right. What about only gnomes.xxx? Simon, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Cool. So I was looking at the time to cross basically from the entrance here over to the western zone line. It's actually not as the crow flies. It's not horrible time wise. So I think this distance, like traversal distance, is good. The thing I was thinking was, because we've got these pockets, we've got like this big POI over here. Hey, Pattis. This area that we had like the cultists set up
Right.
in the past. I don't know if you're referring to this. This looks new. What I'm thinking is just we chop this whole little sploop off, right? Just basically just do mountains here to tighten up, like get rid of some of that space.
Yeah, I can do that.
And then we're going to be connecting. So we're getting rid of Dragon's Run. And we'll be connecting Glass Flats to Vale of Zentar. So we'll just need to coordinate sort of connection here. In a picture, we've got the dried river that was coming out of Dragon's Run before. But since this used to be like a lake bed, or actually, since this used to be, oops, don't look at that. I just drew like the weirdest penis ever. The figure a lake, we could just run the river out of the lake area here, if we're assuming this all used to be a big lake bed. Then we can run the river out here, and then we just need to give it a little bit of cushion on the side, so that way back in the day when this was a lake and that was a river, that there was actually a little area to walk alongside it as well. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I've started carving out the river right here.
Oh, cool. You're right. I'm going to zoom in real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And I'll try to, this weekend, I'll be updating the Confluence page on sort of the reconfiguration of the lore a bit to try to make things a little bit clearer, make them make sense.
Sounds good, bro. So you want to get rid of the cultist and bandit area over here, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't need a lot of space. So what I'm thinking is in cutting this like in cutting this portion off and bringing this in here, we can still accomplish the same thing because we have, like, you can barely see them, you know, because the space is so big. We've got those campfires and stuff. If we've got a mountain piece and there's a ledge, you know, that kind of comes up or whatever, and so we got mountains. Oops. Then this flat area, I think, is plenty of space for us to still do the same setup that we had before. Just with just less negative space, right? Because see how all this stuff is just dwarfed by the space. And then, you know, if we want to maintain a little something like this, then we can just bring it up and do the same thing that used to, back in the day, exist. Like the entrance.
Right. And this was the cultist hideout, right? That cave system?
Yeah, it was just, I mean, all I did, it wasn't official. I stole the hidden cave system out of Night Harbor and put it in here as a placeholder.
Okay. That's why it looks familiar.
Yeah.
And just a note about that crystal shader. That's not final.
Okay.
I'm probably going to have to enlist the help of Monty and company to actually push that into the end zone.
Okay. And I'll follow up a little bit on, I'll follow up offline on the, some of the thoughts on the use of the crystals and the use of the glass as well. There's there's some lore justification that I want to clear up on, like where the glass is actually where it is and what's going on with the crystals, kind of how we can maybe populate the zone with them a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm being kind of vague here because if I wasn't streaming it, I would just tell you what I was thinking directly. But since it's some lore stuff of it, I'm actually gonna hold off until I can shoot you some details or we can chat again. And then hopefully I'm trying to keep the work that you've done so far in mind, and then hopefully it doesn't create too much additional work to change some stuff. Is it super hard? Like, I don't know where you're at with the mesh. Is it super hard for you to edit the current mesh? Like terrain?
No, not at all. But yeah, I converted all the base terrain to Unity terrain. So in terms of changing all that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to convey was that this was previously a lake.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept a lot of the old terrain that you had generated way back when. And just to give the effect of, you know, a lot of this has been eroded away, and now we've got a bunch of rock outcroppings and that sort of thing. But if that's too much, let me know. I can dial it back some.
Okay. I don't think it is. My main my main concern when we look at this later will be conveying the source of the crystallization a little bit better. Right, so that
Right.
we can hint at like what caused both the crystals and then what caused the glass. And so it may just be a little bit of like kind of positioning them so it looks like you can see where it came from, the conflict and stuff with regards to the glass. And then with the crystals, it'll be more linked to specific sources as it relates to like the Citadel and stuff. There's a question, Chinny D had a question in here. Fabricio also had one. Sorry, guys, I'm ignoring some of the chat. The spiky things are just crystals. The trees were actually me being kind of a smartass way back in the day when I was first laying this out and we were talking about crystal trees and I just made Christmas trees in Blender. Cause this old stuff was stuff I did and then this new stuff is stuff that team's been working on. Let's see. How do you feel? Trinity asks, how do you feel about reusing layouts or caves or mines? Just wondering if you feel it's worth it to save time, not actual dungeons, or just smaller POIs. When we're blocking stuff in, like I was showing this thing over here before, when we're blocking stuff in, it's easy to just grab something and copy paste, just so that in theory, on the design side, it's easy to grab something and put it in its placeholder, because then when I'm talking to art or when we're talking to art, folks like Simon and Pattis, etc., can look and go, oh, okay, that's what you intended. I would say I would defer to Simon. If we're doing a simple, like, say we're doing a simple 3-4 room cave setup, would you feel like you get a big benefit out of just reusing, or would you just, since it's smaller, want to like just make one that's original really quickly?
Yeah, it's pretty quick with Pro Builder. So Brandon and I were previously having a conversation about whether or not we should include some procedural geometry that we could reuse, but with Pro Builder, it's probably just as quick to just drag out a few boxes and customize them as you like.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's something about, it's not too big a deal if you go into, especially if we're in an overland zone and we've got like little pockets here and there, like little caves, and you go in and you kind of notice, because eventually they'll be mapped, right? Like, and so when you look at the map, like if you're on P99 and you're looking, or sorry, like if you're looking at the P99 wiki and you see on a map that some geo's been reused, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. We're not going to look at it and be like, oh man, getting ripped off. So some reuse is probably fine, and it's like there's only so many configurations that a dungeon could be in. But I do think the more that stuff feels one-off and handcrafted, if it's not costing us a bunch of time, the better. Just because those little things add up. I believe they add up subconsciously. Because we're always doing pattern recognition, right? Like, wasn't that like part of the premise of Raph's book on fun? So if you're starting to always see the patterns in what we're doing, then it kind of maybe cheapens it a bit. And I think that's one of the reasons why, like Classic EQ, before we started doing more and more, kind of, not prefabby, modular kind of design, which, when we're working on a game, we're always trying to find efficiency. So it's like, how do we do this faster, better, blah, 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 so we can make more content for you. But on the flip side, in doing that, I think we wind up shooting ourselves in the foot a little bit, because it starts to look like it's copy paste, right? And so, but there's a lot of shit like ruins and these crystals or whatever. If we do, say we do a subterranean mine later, whatever. Say we do a mine later and there's tons of crystals in the mine. Like, should we make all new crystals for that? No. We may grab them and group them differently, or we may even do that now, but like the effect is such that it's like, all right, these crystals are good crystals. We don't need to make unique crystals in every zone, that type of thing, right? And so I think it's going to be that mix of reuse of certain assets, which to me the assets tend to become like symbols in a sense, right? Like a barrel is a symbol for a barrel, a crystal is the symbol for a crystal, and it doesn't need to be like a unique crystal depending on the, every time you go into a zone, you don't need to see an absolutely new barrel or crystal because your brain just chunks it as, okay, I know what that is. But in the environment side, I think if the environments start to feel pretty copy pasty, then your brain's kind of going, okay, but then what is my unique experience in here? Like what is making me sort of stay on my toes, and what is exciting the part of my brain that hasn't seen this, that's looking for a pattern it hasn't seen before. So to D-Love's pudding suggestion of, he said his suggestion was to build dungeons and modules so that you can mix and combine them later. Yeah, I mean, we kind of do that inherently in developing a theme, right? And so the degree of modularity within a given theme is going to come down to just kind of how the individual artists approaches making those assets. I will say though that if we have a dungeon that is a bit more structured, like the architecture is structured, and it gets easier to kind of just make some pieces that you can click together to, make the dungeon. I think that's fine for some dungeons, especially when they're more structured. But if we start doing all dungeons like that, it's just going to look like we're playing with Legos in here. And I do think that, and I just think it won't feel as good as, for instance, if you look like old EQ dungeons, the editor was kind of a pain in the ass. It was my understanding when I hung out with the environment artists. The editor really didn't allow, it wasn't easy to do things super symmetrical until later on when we started using 3ds Max a lot more. And so what wound up happening was you would get these wonderful, like organic feeling, areas that were then broken up by things that, wow, my pen just did some wacky stuff on here. That were broken up by like hallways and stuff that were easier to make feel, more sort of symmetrical and better, like more perfectly crafted. But even there, remember, like if you're going down a hallway, because there is some artifacting and stuff in the export process, if I'm not mistaken, and I think early on, Pattis explored this. Like we were talking to Pattis about this, and he really explored doing this intentionally. And I think we've done a good job on the environment side of making it so that if you're going down that hallway or whatever, there'll be like that little off kilter step, right? And then you come down, and then there'll be this other like imperfect little step, right? And it's just a half a unit tall or whatever. But when you're coming down, it's better than just going down a perfectly smooth hallway, right? So that's the thing, making it as handcrafted as possible without just blowing the budget on in terms of time.
Yeah, I agree. Look, like that's been our goal since day one.
Yeah, and honestly, I think you guys have done a good job on that. For us, I think time-wise, like making stuff feel unique or in handcraft and stuff hasn't been the thing that like gets us on time. There may be some workflow. So some of the things that we'd be looking at, we're going to look at in terms of improving just kind of like our efficiency. I don't want to say effectiveness. Efficiency is, and we've been working with Nicodemus on this. Can we do a better job of providing like more direction going into a new zone? Because the process in my experience varies between, hey artists, here's one paragraph, please go make a zone and we'll start checking in as you go. Or sometimes it'll be like, hey guys, here's a really cool ultra detailed map, and then everything in between. Like, here's a map with 4 blurbs, and we want a POI roughly here, and this is here, and that's there. And, that's just kind of the process. Other companies do it other ways. Some companies get very, very specific and very detailed and do mini iterations on a map and then gray box it and all this other shit. But they're also capable of spending 4 or 5 months on every zone. And if we do that, we're not going to have very many zones. So, so that's one thing. I think.
Yeah, definitely. And that recent map Nicodemus made was fantastic.
I'm hoping the maps wind up being helpful. The one concern I have with maps always is the one concern that I have with maps is that they become too literal sometimes, and so we're gonna have to find, like, we'll have to have that kind of, we'll still have the discussion of, hey, the map is showing this, but let's get in and actually look and go, is this really that far? Hey, is the scale correct? That kind of stuff. These zones are super big as well, which is another, I think, challenge for you guys. It's not making a big zone isn't the challenge, but filling a big zone is. So we'll continue to play with that.
Yeah.
How long do we think a zone takes to make? Simon, how long do you think an outdoor zone takes to make?
Honestly, it depends. Like, Sungreet was the last zone I worked on, and that zone probably took longer than it should have, just because, I was somewhat inexperienced with using Pro Builder to make large terrain elements. So I think Sungreet ultimately ended up taking 3 months, but I could probably get that number down to a month now that I'm a little more familiar with the tools and finding out what works and what doesn't. So I told Sean early on that I thought glass flats would probably take a month to 2 months, and I don't think that's far off.
Yeah, and I think the thing that'll just eat up a little bit of time here is like with most things, just sort of the iteration and back and forth, and like, hey, I see you've got this, but what if we change that now, right? Like that kind of shit. So I mean, if we shoot for our outdoor zones, if we shoot for like a month and we land in like a month and a half, 2 months, but are able to nail the POIs, I think some of these will benefit from some concepting and before we even tackle them, and then it's like, okay, we know what the citadel looks like, and that'll save us time in other zones as well, like the floating citadel over Vale of Centaur, and then we steal some, like we know what it is over here. Yeah, so anyways, I could see where we'll find some efficiencies as we go, and just the more we can front load answers to various questions, whether that be maps, concepts, etc., the more we can kind of stay on that trajectory time-wise.
Yeah, definitely. And the great part is, like, you had previously provided a first iteration of this zone, so that made it like really easy for me to come in and add the Unity terrain, pick out elements that I thought would be excellent in our new version of the zone. And because you had essentially done an early gray box of it, so that made it pretty quick.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's going to help us longer term, which we're going to find with these proof of concept zones, will be our final determination on scale, right? And it'll be with the understanding of what's it feel like once we're in here with a max run speed, modified run speed that we're happy with mounts in. If we're committing to getting the caravans in for proof of concept, which so far we are on our list, then does that feel right? All of that. And then these first proof of concept zones will form the basis by which we understand all the rest of our zones. And as these systems are coming online, as we're still kind of playing a bit and doing things like, you know, chopping an entire zone out of here completely. So like Dragon's Run, we have nuked off our zone list. So this will actually now go from Sungreet Strand over into Vale of Zintar. And then from Vale of Zintar, it'll come back down. We're actually moving the entrance from Shaded Dunes directly into Vale of Zintar. And instead, if you kind of look here, you would go into Shaded Dunes and then come through Fallen Pass a little bit and then go out into Vale of Zintar. No more Dragon's Run. Yeah, I'll be honest. Dragon's Run was anything that we thought was cool in Dragon's Run, we can absorb into the other two zones. But we're in preparation for hitting you guys up with like a firm idea of what is going to be in proof of concept and what we think is going to take to get to proof of concept complete. We decided to move some stuff around because we want to be as effective as possible with our zone choices for proof of concept. And so like we've had some good discussions back and forth on like what that actually means. And we're going to be having a fun meeting with the team on Sunday to just kind of go through all of that and talk numbers, talk time frame, and then, you know, talk about some of the implications of, hey, this has been moved. And, you know, the goal is to do the following zones, have them connect in the following ways, blah, blah, blah. And just kind of run back through like the features that we want to be able to showcase in proof of concept and essentially what's in that vertical slice. So we'll see how the team responds. We've talked about little bits of this here and there leading into it. But I'm really kind of excited and curious to see, you know, we don't do a lot of big team meetings. It's not efficient for us. Yeah, we're in too many different time zones. People have got families and jobs and stuff. And so it's hard for us to do. But for this one, it'll be a good one because then we can really just talk about, hey, we think this is everything with proof of concept. And then what do you think about these time frames? And if the team's excited, if the team's gung-ho on it, if they don't feel it's kind of a, you know, a dumb shit or batshit plan, then we'll basically start having some discussions and presenting information to the community with regards to what the future looks like, what we're shooting for, how long we think it'll take, and all that stuff. And then we'll see what you guys' responses are. And if you're positive as well, I'll be honest, I'm not trying to seed this in a weird way or whatever, but I think there'll be a certain percentage of folks that'll be in agreement with the plan. And I think probably for one of the first times, there'll be a certain percentage of folks that are really like, I don't like your plan. And that's normal. That's eventually the honeymoon wears off. And then we start to look at like the reality of like, all right, this is the plan, this is the time frame, and people are like, oh shit, okay, that's what you mean. So we'll see. Either way, I'm pretty excited for it, just because you know, we've approached everything to date in as transparent a manner as possible. There's no reason to change that, just because it's like, you know, there's some concern that we're not going to be the perfect thing for everybody, which I guess, I mean, we haven't tried that so far, right? Like people that don't like certain things like corpse runs and other shit, I think we've been pretty straightforward with them. Hey, what's up, Dark Inside? So, Simon, do you think with that suggested change, just the, oops, I guess it'd be there. Kind of bringing that in there. And then the other stuff you've already got on your list. Are you good in terms of feedback and direction stuff, or do you need to hold up, or do you want to hold up until we can discuss in a little bit more detail some of the other stuff that's in here?
No, I think we're rocking, man.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll hit the ground running with these suggestions, and maybe we can talk in a week or something and see what you think.
Okay. What do you, to put you on the spot, what are you going to be working on between now and whenever we talk in a week?
So I'll be finishing up the zone border geometry, and I've done most of it. It needs to be iterated on again to get some decent horizon silhouettes going on for the mountains and whatnot, since we eliminated the whispering dunes to the north.
Yeah.
But I'll finish up the southern section right here, get all that completed, and some nice mountains in here and whatnot, and a little home for the cultists, maybe the bandits somewhere.
Yeah, I mean we've got enough space. So like one of the things that's going to be on the list of like topics of discussion is how to break up the space in a way where it still conveys the scale and it still conveys the themes, but it gives us some natural POIs, some eye catchers that then allow us to do population work that's not just like if we've got a mob field here, we can do that, but this is such a giant, it's so big that even with ginormous mobs, if we're just doing like a big volume and we're having them wander in there, like I think we are now, though it may be big enough that they're turned off, just sphere of influence. But like if we were to look, like even if they're ginormous, they're just kind of like, you know, it's they just get lost, right? And so one of the things I want to look at is when we've got certain features, then it's a little bit easier to have them congregate in an area. Like we can always have mob fields, but finding these things where we can then tell like a little story with the population there is helpful. The thing is, when we're operating on this scale, right, like it's a matter of how do we do that. And so one of the things that I was thinking with like the crystals and stuff, and this is where I've been rewriting some of the lore as well. There could be a how do I say this? The origin of the crystals, I think I alluded to it a little bit in the thing that I wrote up earlier, but again, I'm trying to beat around the bush rather than not say it explicitly here. Having some things that serve as a logical source of the crystals allows us to make those little mini POIs, right? Because we can like bunch them up, right? So there's like, here's a spot because a piece landed there. Here's a spot because a piece landed there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good idea. Some more environmental storytelling in this zone will go a long way.
Mm-hmm. And then it's funny because Chili Sauce was just saying at night those fires in the distance drew you in from the area you're taking out. Oh, don't worry. There'll be new fires in that area. We're not taking it out, we're shrinking it. And then we're just going to make it so that the fires are even more visible because you're not looking over the course of another like 300 meters. But I think some glowing with the crystals and stuff will also provide that kind of benefit, right? So it's some nice glowy spots. ZBrush said, I thought those were salt flats for a second. The original ref and stuff for this zone was a lot of salt flats and stuff. So
yeah, we can definitely still do that, Sean, that's the direction you want to head.
Cool. And then, things like bandit, you mentioned the bandit camps again. This, it's still such a big zone that, I mean, just up in a place like this off the road, we can put in a decent sized bandit camp and it'll still like, it's not like it's right on the road or super obvious or whatever. So come in and play with some stuff like that. But I'll try to sit down this weekend and sketch together a few more of those types of specific notes, and then I'll get them to you while you're working on the mountains. The mountains that you did for the going into the biome jam were really nice, so I'm excited to see the mountains that you put in. And there are a couple areas where I think once you get them in, this is something I was gonna mention to Pattis as well, and we may need it over in like Shaded Dunes and behind Night Harbor. It's funny, when we had the Flying Citadel, Nicodemus, I think, asked a great question, or maybe Brandon, was like, okay, if you can see Fallen Watch, from 3 zones away, and we've got this Flying Citadel over in Vale of Zintar, like, why can't you see it, right? And so it's like, and we've talked about some different ways to kind of mess with that, but I do think one of the first things to try is, because as we build out the world, I really do want our mountains to feel like mountains. So,
Right.
It's cool to have these in, but then behind them to put in a bit more, in a bit more, just because, like, why not?
Yeah, and you know what, that had been one of my longstanding questions is, did we want to have like terrain imposters, facades, that sort of thing in the background for mountains and the Flying Citadel as well? But I think that's a great idea.
Absolutely, because it's for us being zone based. I mean, we do a great job of it already. Like, you may even have some still in here, right? Like, if I come up here, if I look all the way, yeah. So I'm in this zone, and I can still see Night Harbor right in the background, and I do think that the more that we can, even if it's a facade, have those moments where we're zone based, but because depending on the zones that we're in, we're allowing for the crazy draw distances and stuff. It helps the world feel more contiguous, and so I love the various areas where we've done that, where it's like, because in theory I'm in one zone looking all the way across the next zone into the third zone, right, and seeing that, and so that's super cool. And here I can see the ogre fortress up there. And so then using like facades or imposters or whatever to also produce like this effective scale in our later zones. And who knows, we could maybe come back in these zones at some point, but in our zones as we're going into the Elven lands, one of the things that I think would just be fucking great is so say you're zoning in to like Scarwood from Vale of Zintar, or actually as you're hitting Vale of Zintar, like, and you're going up into up onto the plateau or whatever, coming out of the desert, and you hit that, looking in the distance, the more we can have these opportunities where you look in the distance and you can see the mountain that's behind the elven, the elven forest, and you can see the mountain that's ultimately going to be where the high elf city is. Like, seeing that way out in the distance and then getting closer and closer to it, and then when you're actually you're in the zone and you're looking up, like, just because we're shooting for like this old school lower poly aesthetic, etc., like, want us to keep just pushing the oh shit opportunities that we have, like where you're standing at a base of a fucking mountain, you're looking up at this mountain and it feels like the biggest mountain you've ever seen in an MMO, right? especially knowing that while this may be a facade, at some point we're being smart and we're not just building out the entire thing or whatever, especially if it builds effect. Like you see a path up there, you see like you see a tower up there on that mountain. You're like, look at that tower's up there on the mountain. And I kind of see a path or whatever. And then zoning, like basically you get to the base of the mountain, you work your way up and you zone into another zone. And then you work your way up some more. And then as you're about to zone into another zone vertically, you're at the tower and you're looking back down and you're like, holy shit, I'm up here. Like, why not? Right? Like, we lean into our limitations, but then really try to, blow people away with just the areas where we push it, right? That's the whole point of the draw distance right here, right? Like not every zone is going to have this insane draw distance, and it's nice seeing this dustiness and stuff, right? Especially if it's passing. Like sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's dustier, but seeing Night Harbor in the distance, so many people have commented about it. They're like, oh man, it's so cool to see that far in an MMO. And it's so cool to see that far in an MMO like this. And those vistas and that shit way out in the distance that draws you out there, I think is great, especially if we're going with bigger zones. And sorry, I'm just like straight up monologuing, Simon. I appreciate your patience.
No, man, this is great.
But like, that's the point of the tower in the distance, right? That's why, I'm not an expert in level design or environment art or whatever, but like gray boxing stuff in, it was like, having stuff that's pulling you, right? Yeah, it works for navigation, but it also, it just kind of summons you. Ollie said Simon's a saint. I'd never allow that. That's bullshit. Ollie, you let me monologue all the time. But yeah, and I love this. I love what you've done here. Like with the fortress then. And have you carried the camps and stuff over yet? All right, so there's some. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I haven't got the individual like goblin elements in yet, but the terrain is there.
Yep. Cool. Because that's cool too then, right? Like you've been in there and you've gone by and you've seen the fires up there, and then you come down and you're in this zone and it's still up there. Ollie, it would be so cool, and I think about this all the time, and I don't know oh, sorry, one distraction before I lose it. Hey, what's up, Robert? Sorry it took me so long to say hey. And then Howler Monkey said, Robot, if you need a new dev, Steve Denuzer's available. It's funny you say that. I just pinged him and was like, what was your Discord name again? And then he told me, and I was like, oh shit, of course it is. Yeah, so it'll be nice catching up with him. How much does the planet curvature play, or is it flat? John, you know my answer to this. This game is a fantasy game, so of course the Earth's got curvature, unlike real life. So let's see. Oh, Ollie, how hard would it be? And it doesn't have to be for proof of concept, unless you really get excited one weekend and you wanted to do something cool when you weren't sleeping. How hard would it be to? It's so rad to see like stuff in the distance, right? Like it's so rad to see the fortress in the distance. And it's so rad to see players in the distance, but they're in another zone. Could it be possible to apply player positional data in a stripped down sort of LOD'd way to the zone you're in? Stop talking about server meshing in Star Citizen, for the love of God, Lich. This is totally not anything like that. It's completely new and unique to us. So we can fake the dragon being in the distance, but because it's deterministic. But a dragon chasing players real time sort of aggro. Ollie just said, didn't Star Citizen do this? Maybe Star Citizen's done it already, so obviously it's not that hard to do, Ollie. Apparently Star Citizen's already done this brilliant idea, so WoW did it as well. I don't, okay, you're just making it sound like it's easier and easier to do. Like, I was wondering if we could just see players running around and stuff. Like, if they don't have to be the actual players, but like if I'm here and there's a goblin camp up there, and so we can see the fires and stuff. In theory, we could put the mobs up there pathing and stuff. But wouldn't it be cool if we saw players and mobs up there, but they're not in our zone? Ollie? Ollie said, you know those lines in UO where you lag while going through and you can use that bit of lag to dupe items? Is that the feature I'm currently adding? No, it's not. It's not fake players, Lich. It's actual players, but they're not in our zone. They're in that zone, but we're getting to see their positional data and stuff in this zone, which I guess just makes them be in this zone. So I don't know. Maybe I should just stop. Can you toggle it off for better performance? I'm just going to say yes. Could it be a spyglass that you check on camps? I think that makes it even harder to do. Simon, do I currently have you hostage? Do you need to be doing anything else?
I do have a work call in like 20 minutes.
This is the moment when Sean realizes he doesn't want zones in a game. I absolutely want zones in a game. I want both. Want the visual effect of a seamless world while also leaving zone lines. If I'm in one zone and my friend sees me from another, can I click my torch lantern on and off really fast to send them Morse code messages? Yeah, I think that should be allowed.
The camp is open.
Yeah. Why don't you just send me a tell? I don't know how Morse code works. Excuse me. That idea is about as efficient as my idea just now. You're like, can I go out of way to do this really complicated thing that's simple to do? I'm like, you know what? That sounds brilliant. I was just thinking the same thing. Could you have each zone extend itself and mirror into each of its adjoining zones, and then positional data in those overlap gets reported above zones? Bikenos, that is exactly what I was saying. Now, I don't know if it makes a damn bit of sense. And we would absolutely need to factor in sorry. Put some clothes on. Heathen. What kind of country do I live in? Why are you Europeans always walking around like that? Sorry, I got distracted. Let's see. What was I even thinking about? I'm not thinking about anything game related at the moment. Let me get back into. Ollie said, my answer to this is it's pretty low priority to implement. Yeah. And it would have to be something that we'd absolutely have to like provide like some player controls and stuff to turn shit off to help improve with optimization later. Robert said, I have the same problem here, Sean. It's a EU thing. You guys are even worse in Scandinavia. Scandinavia. Yeah, sorry guys. We're going to wind up cutting this stream short. I'm just kidding. I'll be here for a little bit longer. Yeah, dude. Oh, I really liked what Goblin had done with the concept on this thing. Did you see it, Simon?
I did. Yeah, I really like that as well.
Shouldn't be. It shouldn't be any harder than anything else to do, right? Like it's basically just modeling that, and we've already got the texture, kinda, right? Like the glass.
Yeah, I think the only concern I had, and I told Gabi that, was, I'm not 100% on my ability to convey what he drew there necessarily, but I think with the right crystal shader or glass shader, we'll be able to make that happen for sure.
Cool. And it's something we can play with, and that's the kind of thing too, where if we're feeling like it's eating up a lot of time or whatever, we can kind of put a pin in it and talk about like how we want to tackle it, and get it, like 60% or whatever, and then come back to it a little bit later. I think that's going to be one of the benefits of us really all just getting on the same page with regards to what we're shooting for proof of concept. Because then we'll know, like, all right, here's the minimum scope. Here's where we think a done point is, and then if we're like, cool, we got all that done, then we can expand beyond that. What zone is this? Glass flats, Ollie. Is the tower going to be a separate zone or just open building? It's likely to be unsure yet, Lich, because if it's separate zone, it may not be available for initially. It may be something that unlocks later. But looking at some of the concepts that were being kicked around about how it could be accessible, yeah. So believe it or not, that's where the inspiration came from, Lich. Ollie's being sassy. Is there going to be keying for zones, buildings, etc.? IDAFAB, yeah. I would expect that if I were you. It's funny, I was just thinking about keying for an island earlier today that we're discussing. Uncovering the plot, getting that gets you, essentially the key would be a map, and then that would get you the opportunity to get over there. I don't know if you saw it, Goblin, but Chip was saying he would like to be a part of the crystal shader discussion. Simon, what do you got? Like 5 minutes till your meeting? 10 minutes. 10 minutes till your meeting.
10 minutes, yeah. Well, one thing I was thinking about for that tower, and I don't know how you feel about it, Sean, but I was thinking having the top part of the tower totally open and accessible through the zone, but having the area beneath the tower be part of future content edition. So that way, if you're in the zone, you could see players climbing up the tower, you could see players fighting in there, but the majority of the runes beneath the tower will be locked for a later date.
And then link into the deep.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Let's talk about that one, because I think that would work with some of the stuff that was drawn up as well, providing that accessibility up there, but then having the rest locked down, because I had always pictured it as being two chunks, kind of like the basement and underground part and then the tower part. And so I think doing it the way you just described is a really nice way to provide immediate gratification and value and still allude to cooler things and add them later.
Definitely.
Ollie, I think this is what we're looking at is a byproduct of just the thing that's been happening with the new volumes. Notice nothing's pathing. So I bet you if I were to load up the data, I could fix this in a second. Nick and I were just talking about that yesterday. That we've been seeing that a fair bit. Spawn editor.
I don't think I've built the nav mesh for this zone for a pretty long time.
Oh, that's probably an issue as well. Yeah, see the volume though? Let's see. Be cool if when mobs collided, they combined to form stronger mobs. It's just every newbie yard is a rat king.
All right, Big Sean, I should run.
All right, buddy. Have fun with your meeting.
I'll see you later, chat.
Thanks for hanging out. See you, Simon. Yeah, the volumes are airborne. I think there's something's changed with the zone, blah blah blah. Let me All right, finally got one. Height. Oh, height's already pretty good. So let's just do this. Let it save. Yeah. No, Ollie, these volumes used to actually touch the ground back in the day. I don't know what's changed. But something's changed. So now they're all up in the air. So it makes sense that they're not working. That was my assumption, but I don't know how they ended up where they are at the moment in this zone. New geo, yeah. Oh yeah. I wasn't thinking properly just because I'm in here running around, but I'm fairly certain the geo is really offset from where it was. You love the robe? It was a really nice gift from Zukin. So now they're moving again. I should be running around as an ogre in a bikini? No. Disgusting. Gatorlisk? Yeah, well, you know. We're never opposed to using placeholders. Don't knock the female ogre. It's not the female ogre in the bikini. Zukin's been putting the male ogre in the bikini. That is the problem. Sphere. This sphere is not very big. That's more like it. Call that a sphere? This is a sphere. Yeah, Simon was trying to link up with me, and I was like, I've got to hop on the stream. So I was happy that he was willing to hop on the stream. Like I said in the past, anybody on the team, if you want to hop in a huddle, I'm always down to have you guys on stream. Makes my life a little bit better, to be honest. And it's not just me. But then again, you also see that I'm sorry, I got distracted by Slack. What was I saying? Oh, I was just saying that I was just saying that it's nice having people on the stream with me, but like I get super rambly and monologue-y, so you guys just have to tell me to shut up so that you can hear some of their talking as well. What happened on Slack? I'm following the art thread still. Cool. Just where I was following the texture conversation, which seems like it's moving along. Can I multi-select in here? I can't multi-modify though, can I? I've never tried that. No. Okay, good. That makes sense. Oops. I'm curious, now that we've made these not render as brightly, and I forget if that was Chip or Keith that had added that in. I'm curious if there's a way to toggle that, or when we want to make the little spawn goblins appear brighter. I probably shouldn't be doing this very much, if at all, until after Simon's done with the zone or further along with the zone, because odds are stuff's going to move around again, which is fine. That's what happens when you front load some data into a zone. Corbett says, how much does Ollie's heart rate go up every time? Sean says, I'm curious if we could. Ollie, yeah, he's Iceman. Ollie's crazier than I am. Like, I'm actually one of the probably the tamer people on the team with regards to requests. Yeah, Ollie does actually come up with more crazy stuff than I do. I tend to be the one clutching my pearls on the project. There are only a few things where I'm like a little wilder. People are like, can we do blah blah, and I immediately just get the vapors. I gotta sit down on my fainting couch with a mint julep for an hour. What's up, this Nick? How have you been? We'll wind up moving all this stuff around again. I just figure while I'm in here hanging out with you guys, I could do a little temporary cleanup, so that if for whatever reason we're in here, it's not distracting. Dealing with the post-vacation blues. Where'd you go on vacation? Nicodemus said, I honestly don't know my boundaries when I come up with ideas. As a dev, I know anything's possible. It really comes down to time and resources. Yeah. So, I mean... And again, not to keep harping on the point, but I do think that once we've all kind of signed up on the same POC sort of complete goals, and it's going to make those conversations a lot easier as well, right? Because we'll be like, all right, are we able to hit our goals for proof of concept? Cool. And then everything beyond that will wind up being be like, hey, I want to go back and add this extra thing, or I want to, you know, can we do this now? Yeah, cool, because we've covered the bases on the other stuff that we signed up for. Because it's an MMO, so we've got to, like, keep adding stuff and making cool shit forever. But we'll get our first chunk that we're biting off done, and then we'll go from there. Took the kids to Disney World last week. All of our first time, much better than expected. Oh, right on, man. I was born in Florida, and my parents, we lived there, you know, off and on briefly, but then my grandparents lived there as well. So I had some rad memories as a, you know, being a kid and getting to go to Disney and have my mind blown. It's such a mind blower when you're a kid. So it's awesome you're able to take your kids. Your wife let you build a lightsaber. Dang. That is a good vacation. I have never built a lightsaber, but I started researching 3D printers because I may have to wind up printing my own prosthetic because it'll be cheaper. So now that I've basically, YouTube knows me so well at this point, along with, I guess, different government agencies who are following YouTube's lead on their analysis of my interests. I logged in order to load up the Monsters and Memories music playlist for this stream on my personal account. And the number one video that was recommended was a 3D instructions for 3D printing a surface-to-air missile. I was like, what? Of course, I had to save it for later. It's like, how did you know? How did you know? Strictly a replica. Strictly a replica. I live in Germany. I don't even have access to Tannerite. Your feeds on any platform now is all Disney stuff, I bet. Like, I was looking, yeah, because it's all so interconnected. I was looking at 3D printer stuff last night on like YouTube, just watching reviews and all of that. And if any of you are experts at 3D printing, I know John does stuff, and there may be others out there. May have to pick your brains later. But I log into Instagram this morning, and immediately it's ads for 3D printers. Nicodemus, you know a guy, seems to be a lot of those floating orbs. Can you not multi-select and set the Y position to the same since they're all roughly the same? I can multi-select and pull them down to roughly the same, but the problem is they're not starting from the same Y-axis. And sometimes when I'm just clicking on shit and doing busy work, it's because I'm in here hanging out with you guys and still don't have a better agenda for super ultra productive stuff to be doing on stream. The terrain has changed significantly since they were put in. So if you'll see, they're all kind of all over the place because the terrain was a bit different. I can't just type in the Y position. I don't know where I would type the Y position into, since I guess this is relatively flat. Yeah, that's fair. But I can only do it at one at a time. It's not going to let me multi-select and multi-edit. I'll try it, but I'm fairly certain that's true. I could be wrong. It'll let me multi-select and move, but let's put one on the ground. Yeah, crystal skeletons is correct, Idafab. Again, we'll be doing a lot of work in here, so we'll see. Oh no, and I'm sorry. Hopefully that didn't sound like I was popping back at you, Lich. I was just thinking out loud, and sometimes when I think out loud, it sounds violent. Let's see. Nope. Wait. Weird. Yeah, but honestly, Lich, a lot of this is a pretty rare problem for us. And again, it's just because this zone wound up going through a pretty big transformation after we had already put some placeholder stuff in. Let's see. Now, if I do this... Yeah. Did that work as intended? I think it did, actually. Would be fun to, it'd be cool to run MnM as a tabletop game, 3D printing the race models. A lot of video games are designed prototype on a table first. Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about that in the past a few times. It's just it's so hard for us to even have a meeting, let alone run a campaign. I mean, maybe you Americans could get together since you're more in the same time zones. I mean, it's been an interesting pro and con with the project, right? Or con and pro. On one hand, it sucks because there is a certain amount of like wanting to be able to just be on when everybody else is on, and so then we could chat about stuff easily or whatever. So that's, you know, that can be a bummer, or it could eat up a little bit of time from time to time. On the flip side, I don't feel like we spend a lot of time bullshitting unnecessarily in meetings and over discussing stuff or whatever. So I could see where we could have benefited from more discussion on some things. On the flip side, I think relative to other teams I've been on, our lack of meetings and our just having to document things like async and send each other clear, you know, messages that are as clear as possible in text and then get a response in text has been helpful. So little give or take, give and take. Farthest apart would be Ollie and Zukin, yeah. Well, Ali, Zukin, I think Zukin, Simon are in the same time zone, I believe. It's weird how many people I've run into from Ohio on this project. We got people in the community and people on the team, like a ridiculous a lot of Ohio represented for some reason. Wonder what that's about. Do we have anybody from Ohio in here right now? Chili sauce said Cincinnati. See? That's a new one. I'm not even counting on I wasn't even counting on you. So you're new. I'm wondering who all is from Ohio. We have like a weird number of people from Ohio represented in our community and team. I think our first fanfare is going to have to be in Ohio. It's because Ohio's boring. Yeah, I mean, that's why Sweden's got so much good music and tech. The Swedish like gaming and tech scene is awesome because, you know, for 7 months out of the year it's pitch black outside. That's how people like Robert and Nurk and staff are spawned. It's because they never leave the house. Exactly. Do any of you Ohio people know where a little town called Lynx, Ohio is? Robert says, blame the weather that I have 10 tunes on P99. They're all like level 50 and up. That's funny, Corvid. The Sneck is in South Kakalaki. South Kakalaki and Compton. Five cool points to whoever can tell me what song that line is from. Even though I think it's North Kakalaki and Compton. Check it out. It wasn't Fellers with Attitude. Even though the word Compton was used, it was from that era, but different. The song also contains the line, "Rar rar like a dungeon dragon," which is a testament to hip-hop's ability to pull from all elements of pop culture, at least back in the day. There are tons of nerds in hip hop, for sure. I mean, remember that whole era in hip hop where like everybody all had their like superhero name, like Bobby Digital, no, just me. Distrom said a Tribe Called Quest scenario. Yep. The scenario. Mystical sounds superhero-ish. He does. That name does, right? Mystical. Mystical with Master P, right? M-O-T-H-O-D, man. M-O-T-H-O-D, man. Yep. Yeah, so the scenario is a great song. We actually, my little punk rock band, when I was a teenager in Alabama, we covered A Tribe Called Quest's The Scenario at a house party. It was awesome. We did not know what kind of music we wanted to play when we grew up. MF Doom, definitely an obvious one. Grandmaster Flash, oldie but a goodie. The Beastly Boys, yes. Nicodemus, yeah, you're pulling from a certain era, a good era of hip hop. Houdini, ooh, whipping that out. Del the Funky Homo Sapien. Were you a skateboarder growing up? It seemed like a lot of skateboarders. That's how I knew of them. I knew of Deltron from skateboarding. Del the Funky Homo Sapien is Ice Cube. I think Ice Cube's nephew. Souls of Mischief, another good one from the era. But yeah, Delta Funky Homo Sapien was awesome. There was one song that kind of got airplay on MTV or whatever. Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina, Mr. Dabalina, Mr. Bob Dabalina. Mr. Bob Dabalina. I can't remember any quotes. I can't remember lyrics worth a shit, but random snips of like 90s hip hop and R&B are just like baked into my memory. Had a Pal Peralta board growing up. Do you remember which one, Nicodemus? Man, those were some magical days. Red Skull with a Sword. That sounds like it's probably like a Mike McGill board, I think. Pal Peralta McGill Red Skull. Maybe it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't one of these, right? Because I think I know which one it actually was. Per alt. Candy apple red board. But it wasn't one of these, so maybe it was per Willander. But there's no sword. I had skeletal hands holding it. Then the skeletal hands with the sword and the skull. I can't think of another design. There? That's what I thought. A lot of folks, but it didn't look like this because these shapes didn't exist yet. So it was, no, here. It would have been this shape. Corbett said mid 80s through late 90s was such a unique time right before the internet that'll never exist again. I know, man. It's so crazy. It's so hard not to be nostalgic for it. So hard not to be nostalgic for it. It's like the last of the analog generation. Oh man, I miss analog. Back when you could wedge some pennies. You could wedge some pennies on the dial and get the squiggly lines to unsquiggle. The dial of your television set, get the squiggly lines to unsquiggle just enough to see some boobies. Maybe that was just me. Saved up all summer to buy it? Yeah, I bet. See, I wasn't the only one. I think a couple of you were in there. When you left the house, there was no way to call anybody. I know. Oh man, it was so good. Freedom. That was like, there's a certain freedom to that, right? You leave the house and it's like, all right, I'm either going to find your ass or I'm not going to find you. Wearing out the VCR tape from Palsy. Hey. Autonomy, exactly, Justin Beard. Can you believe that Cinemax, now Max, is the winner? There's no HBO, it's just Max. Cinemax was always kind of the crappier HBO. Now look at us. Hey, Liz Kimber. Oops. But they're under the umbrella of Max, though, I believe. Enoch, is that not correct? 90s arcades, yeah. Man. Flashy Flash. Right in the feels. 90s arcade. That arcade smell. There's something about the arcade smell. What was that smell? It's like stale pizza with fresh pizza, with carpet, with the smell of game cabinets, burning ozone. When I get to heaven, I'm going straight to the arcade. I'll be like, round up my dogs, high five the relatives, and go straight to the arcade. There's bound to be one. Straight to Laserdisc Dungeon's lair. Exactly, Robert. Liz said, "Now come heaven, I'm gonna go sit in the dog area." I'm just gonna grab my dogs and take them to the arcade with me. We're gonna have a long conversation, me and the dogs. Will the crystals give off light or anything when it gets dark? Eventually. We were just talking about that. Very likely they eventually will. When I go to heaven, I'm on fire watch because Marines guard the gates. Esan. Oh, you Marines. I love you, brother, but you guys are silly. See you, Lich. Have a good rest of your day, buddy. Loved the bowling alley. Being an 80s kid was so much fun. Parents would go league night and we would hit the arcades in the basement. Yep. Dude, my dad could bowl his ass off. Liz says, I must admit, as a Brit, we have Air, Navy, and Army. Never quite understood where Marines fit in the world. It's a fair question. Marines are they're just boat army. They're just boat army. Like I would not join the army. I would not have joined the army if you told me I had to get on a damn ship. Ugh. I went the other route. I was air army. It hurts you to the core. Sorry, my devil dog friends. Yep. Army ain't ready for Marines yet is the difference. Oh my gosh, Marines are so silly. They're so silly. They're so silly. How do you have any Marine Corps tattoos, Esan? How many Marines are in here that have a Marine tattoo? But I love you guys. Actually, no. Out of 17 tattoos, none. Snake doesn't either. You have grunt on one. Well, that's fair. That's general purpose. That's not a Marine specific tattoo. I went right out of basic. I went straight into airborne school and never jumped out of a plane after airborne school again. Spent all my time riding in helicopters. So Army, Navy, Air Force are all the normal game characters. You're saying Marines are more hardcore solo self-found. Marines are more like they're kind of the ogres. They're kind of the ogres of the lineup. They're big, they're lovable, they're durable. Oh, there's Dragon. They're big, they're lovable, they're durable. As Sneck said, they eat crayons. I did see the video of the Florida cop shooting at the Acorn. That poor guy, but I do also think that while it's never great for someone to lose their job, I do think that hopefully that gentleman finds a vocation that's better with his disposition. John said my dad was in the Army for 14, 15 years. I asked if I should join. He said no. That was the end of the convo. My dad was the same way. My dad was like, my dad never wanted me to join the Army. My dad, my dad was on his like, my dad had like a year left or 2 years left when I joined. 2 years left, I think. No. Yeah, but he was right around retirement age when I joined, and my plan was never to join. I found that I wasn't well suited for college. I just didn't enjoy going to classes. I've never enjoyed sitting still in a class. There are some classes that I enjoyed, like they were engaging enough, but I would get bored in class so much and feel like, all just confined. And I ran into a classic Southern situation where I'd gotten in a physical altercation, and at the time we didn't realize I'd probably only wind up paying a fine, and so my lawyer talked to the judge and explained the situation and said that because I was just hanging out around town and starting shit and getting into trouble and stuff, and so my parents and I discussed. I was like, I need to get out of here, so I'll join the Army. And at that point, my parents were like, yeah, maybe we'll maybe we're cool with you joining the Army after all. And so went. I had never bothered to take my ASVAB or any of that shit when it came around to school. So I went, knocked out my ASVAB really quick, even though that wasn't totally legal because I wasn't supposed to be taking my ASVAB and being recruited while I had charges pending. And then, ace that, it's no problem. And, signed up and went back to the judge and let him know. And the judge was like, yeah, when I was a young man, I'd gotten a bunch of shit myself, son, and found myself in a similar predicament as you, and joining the Navy was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so they dropped all charges, expunged my record from, it ever existing, and I joined the Army. That was that. The Jody call had special significance. The old one, was it? It was the old, got a letter in the mail, said go to war or go to jail. But it wouldn't have been that dramatic. It wasn't like a bad altercation. You guys must think I'm like a degenerate. I'm like, you're like, what happened to your hand? Well, I broke it in a fight. How'd you get in the military? I got in a fight. Well, not gonna bullshit you. That's who I am. You don't think of that at all. You just know it. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks, John. Russell Crowe, the gaming world. Hell yeah, I like that. I need to keep working on the Russell Crowe dad bod. Yeah, I've got to. I've had to spend a lot of time cultivating a bit more patience. But I'm also, I think hopefully I've shown that I'm a relatively chill and patient person. Hopefully people on the team find that as well. I'd hate for people to think I was just like some sort of like a wild card or whatever. But when people get aggressive with me, I grew up in a pretty aggressive environment, right? Like physical altercations in, you know, the environment I grew up in were not uncommon. And so there's just that, like, there's that part of me that when something pops off, usually I'm looking at somebody, I'm like, you're not any bigger than my dad, you know? You're not bigger than my dad was when I was a kid, so I'm not going to take your shit. So, which is a weird combo for, you know, being a nerdy dude, and then I guess sometimes people don't expect you to put hands on them. Yeah, the actions have consequences there. Yeah, you could definitely say that. My parents had me when they were 17, and my dad joined the army immediately. So that's kind of all he ever knew. So I grew up under the direct supervision of Sergeant Lord. Simon said Sean was arguing about whether the party was a hootenanny or a hoedown. I swear I would not get in a fight over that. Cool. I think, let me unload this data and reload it and we'll see. Folks are like, you're saying this on stream. What if any potential future employers are watching this? I tell you what, guys, we're going to keep hammering on this game until it is a success, no matter what it takes. And if by some weird circumstance it's not, then we'll just have to start a new one, because I really don't want to work for another company again. I'll be real honest with you. I'm so tired of game companies that are run by other people. Gen Xers wonder how we lived through all that. I don't know, man. I look back, it wasn't that bad. Dangerous, but it wasn't. I think it was healthier. I feel bad that a lot of kids these days don't have the opportunity to have the wild ass experiences that we had, and the opportunity to disconnect and all that stuff. I feel super blessed that we didn't have social media. I would have never made it. Yeah, it's rough right now. Like, I look at LinkedIn and I feel really bad for a lot of folks that I know, right? Like, there are a lot of really talented, talented, experienced people out there that have been laid off or looking for jobs, and I know how much it sucks to have to get back into, like, I mean, job interviews are so rough. So I feel a ton of empathy for folks that are like back in that situation. Like, job interviews are so rough. Even when they're easy, there's something about it where it's like, well, Bob, tell me why you're the candidate for us. It's like, really? Are we doing this? Well, Timmy, tell me why you're not going to randomly lay my ass off in 2 years. Or a year, or 6 months. As an extreme introvert, interviews that worked at Devil. Yeah, it's even tougher for some folks, because I don't have a problem talking to people. I just hate feeling fake, and so often, like, part of the process is, yeah, having to sell yourself. It is gross. It is gross. And it's tough out there, and then it's going into it with the realization that, hey, it's tough out there. There's a lot of competition, man. Like, so I don't know. That's a challenge, but I also think what's happening in the games industry is also another sign. The games industry and some tech. I just, and this is probably, this is bound to offend some people when I say it like this, but I think one of the other problems is that there's an expectation that these jobs exist or should exist, right? Because it's like, I don't know that all of these jobs, not jobs, but all the openings, like the total head count for the industry, I don't know that it's valid, right? Like it's you kind of seeing that with like the bloggers, the journalists and stuff, the people that write for websites and things. No offense, but it's maybe we're starting to see that the world doesn't need that many of them, right? And so I kind of feel that way myself in terms of like, if this didn't exist, like if for whatever reason it's just everybody's like, ah, fuck it, don't want to do it anymore tomorrow, you know, we're just decide not to go forward. My first inclination would not be to like go find a games job. I'd almost rather just, you know, it's like take the remaining savings and take a, you know, really nice course on like being an electrician, or you know, just anything that's kind of steady, decent work. It's this assumption, especially nowadays, there's so many jobs that people don't want to do, that I'm like, all right, so we've got a bunch of jobs that people don't want to do, but we believe that we should ensure that there are enough game developer or influencer jobs or whatever. Really? Go learn a trade, kid. Liz says, I can't sell chilled bottled water in a desert, let alone fat ugly me who wants a job. Oh, don't say that. Don't say that. One of those things I struggle with is seeing ads for, hey, bored of your job? Cross-train doing this like 10-hour pathetic sounding course and you can earn 40K, which is more than a lot of people in the same role earn with years of experience. So then it's flooded with inexperienced people. I've got to say, a lot of times when I'm happiest, it's just when I'm at the garden working on shit. Jasmine gets a lot of satisfaction out of, she's a dental surgeon, but at the end of the day, the thing that she really likes is the fact that it's mechanical, right? Like she's in there problem solving with her hands, right? Like she's doing fine detail work, but it's physical. And I noticed that about her when we first met. She will throw down on like some housing projects in the house, not housing projects. Yeah, she goes to housing projects and just throws down. Trades do wreck the body. Yeah, it's physical, and it's not all peachy keen roses and flowers and stuff, but you know what else wrecks the body? Believe it or not, it's sitting in a chair 8 to 18 hours a day, pumping your body full of cortisol because you're stressed out over nonsense that ultimately is not going to matter in 5 years. Like there's, you know, everything wrecks the body. Not to downplay it, but oh, I didn't put loop on here. We'll fix that problem. And for those of you that are out there doing like trades work and stuff, I'm not trying to you know, make light of the impact that it has on you or the amount of effort. If anything, I'm trying to convey a fair amount of respect for the work that you do, and I think that it winds up getting underrated Maybe not financially, you know, a lot of my friends back home, you know, are welders and do other shit like that, and they make really good cash. It's just, I'm always shocked that people don't realize that, you know, there are some of those opportunities out there. Bekano says, my mom just retired. Really trying hard to get her into hobbies that keep her hands moving or body moving. Just don't want her to stagnate. I think that's one, it's really good of you to be thinking about that. And two, it's important. My neighbor, so our landlords live next to us, below us, and they own like all these townhouses. And the neighbor's mom is 93. And she sweeps our front area, like we're in this townhouse. She sweeps the stairs in a big open landing we have and the sidewalk and stuff every day. And I think that routine is just, you know, part of what keeps her healthy. Be More Gaming says, I was in the electrical union in my late teens when the economy wasn't doing well. Working conditions were brutal. Can imagine. And when you say working conditions were brutal, help me understand that better. Like the amount of time that you're working each day, the environment you're working in, stress, or how people were like dealing with you. Physicality, you were having to lug cables up on the roofs. What was it? Sorry, need to respond to something really quick. Be More Gaming, no answer. Oh man, I'm sleepy. I promised you guys a second stream this week, so I'll be streaming again tomorrow at this time as well. My usual stream time, 8 to 11-ish. Jasmine's got a work thing anyway, so that works out. Be More says it was a combination of that. People were terrified of losing their jobs, so higher ups were down our throats every day. Had to push 200-pound spools of wires up 7 stories, dig ditches, etc. All had to be done faster. Yeah, that's rough. Because if not, there's plenty of other people on the bench waiting for work. Yep. Seems like a very different job climate. Senior Angus says, I work in IT and I feel bad for my coworkers. They keep wondering why their chairs have holes blown through the middle of them, not realizing I rip ass in my chair until it's destroyed, then I swap it out with a new one in the office. Oh man. That sounds rough. You're 5'5". Forgot to put your chair back up and almost killed your 6'6" boss when he went to sit down. I did not realize you were 5'5", Isan. Robert said he's taller than me. We measured it in Germany. I don't think that's I don't know that that's 100% accurate. I don't know that that's true. My Viking friend. I don't think that's true. Robert tried to be taller than me for a moment. And then I had to put my arm around him and pat him on the head. The whole Viking thing's a myth. There's not that many tall Swedes. There's some tall Germans. I think the whole Viking thing is made up. After living in Sweden, I don't believe the Vikings came from Sweden. I think the Swedes are really good at staying out of conflict, as they demonstrated in World War II. They're very smart people. They're very clever. And so I think the Swedes made up the Viking thing and put the word out. But what they were really describing was German barbarians. Ronan says, I feel that when my 5'2" wife borrows my car and doesn't scoot the seat back, I'm 6'2". 6'2" me tries to get in without thinking. Yeah. I used to have that problem back in the day. One of the bigger issues, not necessarily hyper proportions. Oh, what? I don't know if it's an issue. Robert said when he steps into the car when his wife's been driving, it feels like an ogre camel. Women often have different leg torso proportions to men, so even the same height, you still need a major adjustment. Oh, that's okay. That makes sense. But the Viking professionals were Germanic or Scandi, not Celt Britons like the people they invaded. What I'm saying is, I'm saying that the Scandinavian Vikings are a myth. They made it up. This little guy? Oh, you're responding to the chat? Okay. Nicodemus says, I think it's over 6,000 game dev layoffs so far this year. Yeah, it's over 6,000 so far. Game industry is brutal for sure, but what I don't understand is how the industry expects the quality of games to not decline with all the disruption. I think Iwata was right. You lose all the experience, seems wasteful. I mean, but... yeah, I don't know if the disruption's what's going to be, or what's impacting the quality of games. Someone said it earlier, I didn't have a chance to read it out, but someone mentioned like the number of people working on Diablo 4, but people aren't necessarily happy with Diablo 4. It is my belief there's a tendency for games to have too many people working on them. And the money spent and number of people working on games is no real relationship with perceived quality of the games. And I would even say that for the most part, unless it's a game that's a bigger sort of an expected title, which that's worn thin more and more over the years. Unless it's a bigger title with a big ass marketing budget and they just need to do like a big splash and boom, they're done. They recoup their cash. Like some of those older, bigger Ubisoft games or whatever. Just... I think a lot of big studios are afraid to take risks. I think everybody's afraid to take risks. So now I'm not sure if that's really as much the... Again, I think that's just kind of a given. I think the problem is that it gets too easy to get to a certain size and stagnates and not really get back to sort of the roots of execution, right? And as as unfortunate as it is that there are over 6,000 layoffs in this year in games, so this, and it's tough to say this because I know how stressful this is for a lot of people, and I want to try to find a way to basically be as direct as possible without anybody thinking that I'm shitting on their situation or the experience that they're having. I've been laid off before as well. But what we're seeing in the games industry right now, I think, is reflective of there's a lot of shit just going on in many industries. Look at the layoffs across the board, right? So whether you're somebody that's on the side of the economy's doing great, best economy ever, or on the side of the economy's not doing very well, and the UK just basically, shit the bed again for another quarter or whatever, is in a recession. Germany's in a recession, like everybody, right? So, and I'm not smart enough or educated enough on like global economics or macroeconomics or any of the economics to like speak intelligently or let alone eloquently on this topic. But I think the economy is maybe not in the best state. Let's just say it that way, all over the place. And so there are those factors. But I think in gaming in general, even if the economy wasn't in this state, or if there weren't other contributing factors, what we're seeing is the forest fire right now. We're seeing a big ass fucking forest fire. And we have some people going, well, the reason why there's a big forest fire is it's global warming. Okay, no. The reason why there's a forest fire of that scale, no matter what the catalyst was, is that there's a lot of clutter and dead underbrush, and there haven't been controlled burns in this forest. There's been no one's brought the goats in to eat the debris. The forest just hasn't been cleaned in a while. And what we're seeing is partially all the other factors, but partially a natural consequence of an accumulation of just personnel that aren't providing value. And I'm speaking generally. I'm not speaking about you or your close friends or whatever. I'm sure whenever layoffs hit, there are some people that are great and could provide value that get caught up in the mix. But we've got to be honest and be like, there's a lot of people in there that just weren't providing the right value for whatever reason. And it may not be their fault, right? Like, you can blame management, you can blame the company's strategy, you can blame any number of things that helped create this situation. But the reality is, I look at some of these companies, I look at this with tech companies as well, where it's like, hey, we make a music app. Okay, you make a music app, and you've got a 200-person UX department, and your total company size is like 4,000 people. But at some point, I'll say it like this: people can come in and play our game. When we go live, or even just the next playtest. When we go into the next playtest, you can come in, and I'm sure you can find a lot of shit that you're like, I wish this was finished. This isn't right. I don't agree with this. This is buggy. This is laggy. Whatever it is, right? There'll be criticisms of the experience. But the interesting thing is, if you talk to somebody about what it takes to make an MMO, they're going to tell you, if we grab any MMO content creator, they will tell you with eloquence and wonderful sweater vests and everything else that if you're making an MMO, you should be expecting to spend tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to make an MMO, right? So the fact that we're so far have spent like $65,000. Now that's because there's a hell of a lot of sweat equity built up here, and a lot of just a lot of work that's been put in by the team that we're ultra thankful for. That if we were to translate that into real dollars, it would be a decent amount of cash, but it's not tens of millions, right? And so if you look at the general experience that you have in the game for 5 hours or 24 hours or whatever you play the game for, and then you compare that to a game that has spent $200 million, because it does have a 500-person team or a 300-person team, then as a consumer, the thing to sort of get a feel for what's going on with the industry, the thing that we should do as consumers is look at it and go, is that really 1000x the experience? So if I log into this other MMO, is it really 1,000 times better than the 4 hours I spent at Monsters and Memories? Or 10,000, or whatever the math is. I suck at math as well, right? Because we're not even talking like 100x, right? Well, I guess we could say 100x if we were to just say the effort that we've put in for free so far. If we translated that to actual like cash, then yeah, it's that's a couple $1 million. Now our actual cost is not that, like I said, but the effort spent on the game so far. Okay, we could say, to be fair, a couple million. Though we're not working full time, etc., so we can pull that number in a little bit if we're a 40-hour week, blah blah blah. So the difference between 200 million and a $2 million sort of push so far, right? And that's how we get into these situations as an industry. The Amazon MMO is a perfect example of that. Yeah. Now, the thing that we're hoping to hit by the time we get to proof of concept complete and we look at it is that you see the game, you understand the systems, you know, basically, like, you know what you're getting. You just wish there was a hell of a lot more of it. That's what we're shooting for. Then that's quantifiable, and we can sort of talk to you about how we want to try to get more of the game out over time. But these other games, you go and you're like, fuck it, I'm just not even really that. I played it for a couple hours, I'm over it, or I just wasn't that into it or whatever, right? And so, yeah, or games that just don't make sense, right? Like I'm doing a live, if you're making a content intensive live service where you've got to feed the beast constantly, like a Star Wars The Old Republic. Oh, you're playing a primarily PvE game, and then you bump the fidelity up, and it's like everything's voice acted, and every fight is scripted, and all this shit. And that may not be speaking, that may not be Sweater, that may be outdated in my understanding of the game. But like when that game came out, I was just like, how's that sustainable, right? So, and the thing is, it's the same thing of like looking at the movie industry or Netflix or whatever, spending tens or hundreds of millions of dollars to do produced content. In the meantime, you've got podcasts where like basically this setup I have here, right? Like fucking a couple $100 worth of equipment and some interesting guests are consuming hours of your time, right? Look at the Valheims of the world, the Among Us. Like in 1 year, we saw Valheim, Among Us, and Fall Guys make a shitload of money. And that's not to take anything away from, the other games out there that had bigger teams that made a ton of cash. But even at the time, was the Fortnite team really that big when it started making big money? Now I'm sure they've added a ton of people since then, and now they've also laid off a fair number of people as well. But yeah, it's just, so that's what we're seeing. Yeah, Pal World, another example, right? And it just keeps happening year after year after year. You see more interest in like a Pal World than you see in a whatever like Ubisoft's quadruple A title is, Ships and Pirate Boats or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know, because I can't be bothered. Wasn't Apex Titanfall IP and they just redid the gameplay? I thought so. Same way that Fortnite was the anti sort of zombie survival, build stuff up game. And then they pivoted into Battle Royale, and boom. Skull and Bones? I honestly don't know what it's called. I've listened to discussion of it. I've listened to Belior talk about it. And I don't know what it's called. Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't look cool. I'm just saying I'd rather take, if I was the one holding the purse strings, Skull and Bones, I would take more bets of a Valheim variety than I would a Skull and Bones variety. Edifab said, I bet the average age in here, though, is closer to 40. Games are being made for dopamine-addicted 15-year-olds. They don't even play games. They watch YouTube videos on metas and race to finish and complain, oh, it's only 100 hours. Yeah, I don't know. And I don't know that 15-year-olds are strictly like twitchy dopamine addicted folks either. So, I mean, there is a fair amount of that, but I think a lot of 15-year-olds are the same nerds that we were when we were 15. No, you don't need to apologize. I'm just countering. Now, you know, the feedback loops that they enjoy in the actual gameplay, you're right, it may be quicker. On one hand, you've got people saying, well, at 40, I don't have more than an hour to play anything. And also 15-year-olds won't play anything for more than an hour, right? So it's like, but I don't necessarily agree with either of those. How many games came from Warcraft 3 mods? Dota. Now that you say tower defense, I guess that makes sense. But like, Dota was fantastic when it first came out. PUBG was a DayZ mod. Yeah, I thought so. Was it Arma 2 mod? Interesting, because I was just thinking about Arma, but when we were playing it was we were playing Flashpoint, Operation Flashpoint, before it became Arma. And it was funny because we would play a lot of like co-op scripted Flashpoint missions and just have a ton of fun for hours in those. And that was about the same time that we were all like reading and watching Battle Royale. And talking about what a fun combo that would be. But I guess we never got our shit together. B-More says, I'm in my early 30s and I love slower games like EQ. Also have a ton of friends in their early mid-20s and they all love RuneScape, which is the slowest game ever made. Yeah, I think it's about just honestly, I think there's a lot of room for different types of experiences to catch traction, gain traction. There's such a giant total addressable market right now. There's so many kids. I mean, what is it? It's over 200 and some million monthly active users for Roblox, and then they age out of it. Minecraft has got a shitload of people. More and more there are kids that are young and play like a Fortnite and they just hang out there and like, oh, it's cool to hang out here. What else can we hang out in? Right? So I think it's really more a matter of execution. I think if people can come in and the game works, you know, if it works, it provides, it scratches a particular unique itch. And yeah, games running, it's severely underestimated. And then there's just something I think to be said, and you know, maybe it's like it's too biased by my personal preference, or it's self-serving by what we're hoping to do, or whatever. There's something to be said about just providing an experience that still feels a bit mysterious, and finding ways to maintain that, right? So. Oh, were there any streamer MnM VODs this week with questions? Really enjoyed the discussion last week. If there were, I just haven't seen them. The Sava said I tried playing Roblox with my niece, but she just jumps from world to world without letting me know. That's funny. I think I mentioned my my garden neighbors. We all got together and baked Christmas cookies and stuff. And his oldest of his 2 daughters was playing Roblox on her phone, and it was so funny because we were having to explain to him because he didn't understand what the hell was going on. So we'll look at the scale of this zone a little bit, but what I'm hoping is once we get some some tweaks to it, I'm hoping that if we've got distinct visual points of interest in the distance that will draw you to it, that we can have smaller camps and smaller kind of like subtle POIs along the way, but for the most part, you'll be okay, with the travel time, like the fact that you're running across a big zone, because the goal is really to reinforce being in a big desolate space and having things feel like huge and mysterious in here, and we'll see if it works, right? But right now we've got a lot of the nav mesh needs to be rebaked, so things are floating, and we've got a ton of just placeholder spawns in here, so it looks a little wacky, but we'll be working on it. But yeah, man, like, what do I know? I could be wrong on all of this shit. I'm just a random person who's worked on games sitting in a office at 11 p.m. bullshitting along. So could be that I'm completely off base, but I think we're definitely in for a more random period in the games industry than we've been in the past, because at least when everybody got laid off in the past, there's a ton of like money sitting around for people to spin up lots of studios that are paid, but I've got to say, and again, I'm not trying to shit on anybody, but I've been looking at some of the studio closures that have been going on, and on one hand, I'm seeing studios that have been around for quite a while and have done stuff like closing, but I'm also seeing a lot of like startup studios and funded indie companies and stuff. It's one of those things where if you've been funded for 5 years and you had 8 million in seed money for a smaller team, and I can't find a screenshot of something you've made on your website, and there's nothing discussing your game, I'm kind of like, okay, it sucks when that happens, and maybe there was the best game ever hidden behind the scenes or something, but I've seen firsthand how like people can get in these situations where they're developing the game, but what that really means is they're like sitting around writing documents and talking about it and doing a whole bunch of shit that's not like actually making a game, and next thing you know, 5 years have elapsed, the money's out, and there's not much to show for it. So I mean, if anything, I think just kind of seeing the decimation take place, it's continuing to refine the fire that's lit under our ass to just keep trying to get to a point where we can get you guys into this game as quickly as possible. And then if your response is like, hey, there's not enough game, then okay, well, stick around for a while. And isn't MnM technically a product of laid off devs opening a studio? No. It is, from my end at least. I resigned at my last company and worked out a severance package as part of that. so that I had a year to just like figure out where I was going to go and what I was going to do next. And then I've just been fortunate enough to cash out a bit of equity that I had in that last company at a little bit of a profit. And between like that and Jasmine having a decent job and us having very low operating expenses, monthly expenses, it's kind of worked out. And the rest of the team's just been, most folks are working, or if they're not working, they're working as freelance or they're between jobs. So, yeah. But it's along those lines, John, in all fairness, I do think it's interesting. I'm reading a lot more lately. People bitching about capitalism on like LinkedIn, you know, people that have been laid off. It's like complaining about capitalism and defining themselves as like the working class and all that stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's whatever on the working class thing, I guess. I always associate working class with a little bit more sweat and back pain, but the whole like, man, it's the system that's done this to us. Okay, well, but you own the means of production. I mean, it's the same thing we're doing. This is the means of production, no? Unity and in Epic give you pretty good access to the factory. So get some folks together. Figure out how to scrape by and I guess make something. And on that note, I'm going to wrap up for tonight so that I can wake up early tomorrow and actually do some work before coming back here tomorrow evening and rambling at all 10 of you. How many? I never checked. Let me see. There's 90 of you. Shit. What are you guys doing? You're so quiet right now. Just listening. John said, yeah, that's more what I was getting at. I think there's more opportunity to make a go of it on your own as a team, a big studio. I think there's so much opportunity to do it, but you know what? It's just people underestimate the challenge it is to like just get folks together and make something. Lurking while working, that's fair. Wax Poetic, thank you, Northern Sky. ZBrush is working too. Everybody else is like, I'm trying to not get laid off right now. Shopping for consumes for Nomergon raid tonight. Nomergon? Yeah. Hey, Justin Beard. All right, guys. Well, on that note, let's say good night for this evening, and then hopefully I'll see some of you on Friday. And we'll go from there. Dragon. See you, buddy. Yeah, nice try. Chat Solo, good night. Be More Gaming. You have a great one as well. Nicodemus, have a great rest of your day. I'm glad you made it home safely. Enjoy your dinner. And can't wait to see the work you do on the map. Liz, good night. Kamathar, good night. Isan, see you, brother man. Talet, good night. Robert, thanks for being here and thanks for providing the wonderful music for the stream. Idafab, you're very welcome. Thanks for being here. Jintaki, see you. Bamanji, see ya. That's a fun name to say. See ya, John. See ya, Chinny D. You are very welcome for the stream, Lasava. Glad to see you, as always. Matrix Hunter, coffee. It is 11 p.m. I am going to bed, buddy. I will, you know what? Maybe I'll drink coffee in tomorrow night's stream. I'll be streaming again tomorrow night. I start 3 hours prior to whenever it is at your time. But it's bedtime for me. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow then. Justin Beard, see you, buddy. Stay warm. See you here tomorrow night. All right, everybody. And if you've got a topic or whatever, never feel bad about like bringing a topic in here and we'll hit it. Chili Sauce, I enjoyed having you here. Yep. Check out the VOD. Cool, man. All right, I'm going to click the button now. See you at the morgue. Happy belated Valentine's Day. Love all of you. Cool. I'm clicking the button. I'll see you tomorrow.